We are really glad that you are here with us today, and we want to present results of our analytical work that the reform of administrative services carried out for the ministry, and we hope that this will be not only the politics, but also will become a reality that will improve the accessibility of services to population. We are glad to meet First Deputy Minister of Economic Development and Trade of Ukraine, Maxim Nefyodov. The Ministry of Economic Development is the policy maker in this area. That's why Maxim is a person who can create proper approach that the ministry will implement in this area. Good afternoon, everyone. It is really pleasant to see you all here. For the majority of people, the state is not law and electronic services like Prozoro that only a small part of people use. For the majority of people, the state is services provided to people, and the quality and quickness and accessibility of the service is really important for people, whether people will feel comfortable or like in post-Soviet times, the main was document, not people. And administrative services can be provided to population in different ways. And I believe that in midterm prospect, the administrative services centers will play an important role. And we will try to do everything possible to provide services online, but there are many obstacles in this way connected with the infrastructure. Our state is not really rich, and the registers and interfaces and instruments of interaction, they will be developed for some time, and there are services that cannot be physically provided through internet, and there are people who do not want or cannot use for some reason the internet, and there are people who do not trust in online services. That's why we need a network of centers where people can come and ask questions and get answers, and we hope to get quality results that they really like. So this shift to establishment of these centers, this is a big step ahead. And our deep conviction is that all the services, all cooperation between people, business, and the state, they should be done via one window. And for people who work in the area, they do not clearly understand the difference between services, and for people it is even more difficult to understand. And we want to simplify life of our citizens, not to complicate it. That's why we want to provide these services through these service centers, and this should be done under one roof. And people, they do not need to know how it actually is created and how it operates. This is the task of specialists. And this is an introduction, and I would like to say that this network was developed throughout Ukraine without proper central control, because this is done through local government, and they can place these centers in different regions. And we made an important step. We should understand clearly the status. We should have clear data Otherwise, we won't be able to build the policy Volodymyr said about. So at the Ministry of Economic Development, we have the Reform Center, and we are thankful to our donors who supported this project. We thank Canadian government, and also we thank Volodymyr and his team because they carried out the survey, and we analyzed all the network of service centers that now exist in Ukraine, and it was identified that this network is not bad. About 69% of people, they live within 10 minutes from this centers, and this is Google Map data. Availability of roads, quality of roads, everything is included. So in this network, we have some gaps, and maybe local government do not understand properly the situation, and the heads of oblast and mayors should know the situation better. And 1.2 million people live half an hour from the centers, and maybe it is not critical for young people who are healthy, but if we are speaking about rural areas, about elderly people, this limits their ability to use these services. And we understand that also this creates uneven load and provoke the queues in some centers. And also we analyzed the 700 centers, and they are of different quality. So this is a separate area for work. And additionally, according to the estimates of our project, there should be 240 new centers that should be open, and they should be in amalgamated communities where the communities got united in order to increase their capabilities and to create some more quality unit, territorial unit that is more stable concerning finances, and if this plan is implemented, if it is done like we have it in our map, we expect that less than 1% will be left in the zone that is more than 1/2 hour away from the center. And we believe that the majority of population will be able to use these centers, and that the majority will have better access to the centers. So this minimum network that we draw, we believe that we will have 60 more centers where the density of population is bigger in those regions, and we expect that in several years we will have more than 1,000 centers that will provide administrative services, and we hope that this network will allow to provide those services and the level of service from the state that we all want. And the role of this survey is not just intellectual product to bring these wonderful maps. In order to show the density and accessibility, we want this to be analytical product for local government in order that they understood the situation, and we, a central body, we will help them where to place new centers, and we also want to inform them about the quality that should be provided, and also we will help with the access to financing that is available in order to develop this network. So in conclusion, I would like to say that Everything is in your hands. I address local government. There is understanding what and where should be done, and there is money for this. So, and we would like to thank the team that spent several months for this research, and we hope that this will improve the quality of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxim. I'd like to give the opportunity, to give the chance to tell about the next steps to the Department of Regulatory Policy, Denis Gutenko, who in the ministry had this area of activities. Good afternoon. Along with the office, we plan to have dialogues with local administrations, local authorities to present this work and propose next steps and hear to their proposals, and somehow to coordinate next steps with local authorities. So, Volodymyr, please tell us about this. Thank you. The main leader of activities, Pavlo Ostapenko, who made the analysis of this 240 gaps. He will tell us about the methodology, how we get the figures, what approaches we use during the analysis. So you are welcome. Thank you. Most of audience knows me. I am an expert in the Office of Administrative Service Reform, and one of the job duties is analysis of the existing network and developing proposals how to improve it. And that is not only me who performs this, also analytics, mapping experts were involved, and from the beginning we developed the methodology, and after that we received this outcome upon completion of the job. First, we analyzed. We have 701 administrative service centers according to the monitoring of the Ministry of Economic Development, and this figure is growing every quarter by 10 or 15 new centers. But so far, appearance of new centers was chaotic since local authorities may either comply with the regulations on administrative services, or they may demonstrate no compliance. So amalgamated communities having money for this, they work on this, they work on creation of such centers. As Maxim already said, to approximate services to rural citizens, to their places of residences. The Ministry of Regional Development so far has not had strategy of development of this network, which would give minimum parameters to which we should adhere to, on which territories we should pay most attention, priority territories. We can't tell that we need 240 and then the allocations which we set. We just demonstrate minimum base for the accessibility of services to ensure maximum accessibility to population. We analyzed every oblast in detail and found 240 gaps. and proposed a solution. The calculations were performed with the help of software, not manually and not voluntarily. First of all, we use software, OpenQGIS, and license programs ArcGIS, S3 company, and Open Geospatial Data OpenStreetMap, where we took data on roads and density of population of Ukraine, distribution of population of Ukraine. First, we got this result, and the preliminary outputs, I would not demonstrate them on the screen. They are very detailed maps. We decided to print all regions. For you can get materials here, where we can see schematic map and list of settlements, which should be priorities to locate these new centers of administrative services. And the web version has been developed. Every expert have a chance to get to know the network. And in your presentations you can see web version of the maps and the situation as it is and our proposals for future. This work is rather interesting, and it took several months for us to conduct this analysis, and I think that the expert community will be interested in it, and it will be in demand among experts. When we analyzed our accessibility as it is in breakdown by regions, we provided after that our proposals in follow-up. And as I have already said, I would like to reiterate that 240 centers of administrative services are needed, including 200 in amalgamated communities. Those centers, these 250 settlements which we propose, they will become centers of amalgamated communities in future, although they are voluntary associations. In this analysis we used perspective planning analysis methodology, which is approved by the cabinet and under the aegis of Ministry of Regions. And we think that these 240 settlements which are not listed in this, which are listed in this list, but they are not centers of amalgamated communities so far, but they will become centers of amalgamated communities. So I think that our proposals are feasible. They could be implemented. Of course, it could be adjusted, because these are proposals of our domestic experts, and now we release this information and we submit these proposals to the coordination group of administrative services at the Ministry of Economic Development, so that they discuss our proposals, consider them, and develop their proposals from the Ministry of Economic Development, and at the same time from the Ministry of Regions. And these recommendations, I think, should be further incorporated in the development of the network of centers of administrative services in future. That's all, and I will be ready to answer your questions. I'd like to add a few words. Accessibility of services matter do not stop at territorial criterion. The strategy of reforms how to make state services accessible for population. We include here 7 initiatives to add to geographic accessibility. Have also included standards of quality standards of services provision. They have been developed and approved by the Ministry of Economic Development as recommendations for implementation in all centers of administrative services. The third initiative, which we think is important, is efficient organizational chart and working processes. There is no sense to approximate centers by increasing the number of buildings if people will spend lots of time inside of those buildings or client services of low standards. So the territorial accessibility should be extended with improving of quality standards so that time of service provisions will be 15 minutes plus 15 minutes for documentation, so in total not longer than 30 minutes. In Rivne, the whole team of administrative services centers is focusing this goal to achieve 15 minutes in the center and the total time of visitors inside the center of 30 minutes. We also put efforts into enlarging the list of services. Most of ASCs provide up to 50 services. This was very short list in our opinion, looking at the large number of services which exist in our country. The best practices demonstrate that 300 services could be provided in the centers. So expansion of assortment of services is an individual initiative to which local authorities and central authorities should be involved. The next area is funding. Funding of centers is needed to promote development of the network and work process. The centers need equipment and premises should be relevantly equipped as well. And funding will be possible via amendments to the legislation. And also the system of feedback should be developed. The services become significant and accessible only when they are named as accessible by visitors. Visitors should have the opportunity to give their opinion, the feedback on each visit of such a visitor. So this is the scope of our presentation, and now we have time for the round of questions and answers. So I invite everyone having questions or proposals, to voice them out. I see that there are many experts among the audience. You are welcome, dear colleagues. Introduce yourself, please.
In Ukraine. Together with USAID Office of Transition Initiatives, we've been supporting SNAP's administrative service centers in the war-affected Donetsk Oblast for almost 2 years now. And among others are the newly formed, newly established hromadas as well, like Mykolaiivka or Liman. And obviously, since they are newly formed, they are facing several challenges, and one of them is directly linked to the accessibility. So some of the villages, they have already become the part of the hromadas, are about to become the part of hromadas, are up to 40 kilometers away from the center of these hromadas. And our colleagues on the ground were wondering how to deal with this problem. On the one hand, decentralization is something very positive, but if it's about to increase the distance or to worsen the accessibility to administrative services, well, it's then not that good, I guess. So one of the ideas they were discussing with us was whether it would be possible to use the starostas that are about to be established on the ground as a front office. If this is something the Ministry of Economic Development is thinking about too, would the starostas receive additional funding, additional training, additional equipment so that they can really deliver these new functions? Thank you.
Можливо, для україномовної частини.
For Ukrainians, maybe there are questions from the International Development Center in the rural areas. Distances could be up to 40 kilometers. Accessibility of centers of administrative services is 40 kilometers. So the proposal to provide to starostas the opportunities and the equipment to provide services at locations, and additionally to ensure accessibility this way. Pavlo conducted analysis, and he analyzed how can we additionally increase accessibility. I'd like to say that as concerns the network, as Maxim said, there should be 1,000 centers of administrative services. This 1,000 will have its levels, and we should differentiate between SCs and amalgamated communities and villages. Different training could be needed and different services. Plus to this gradation, which we will soon present, I hope there is such a type as far away distance administrative remote places of administrators. Sometimes these functions are vested in starostas, and sometimes hired employees conduct these functions. The Ministry of Economic Development is now thinking, and it has already established 11 such places, such remote administrator jobs. Returning to our discussion, there is a question where to create this remote administrator places, workplaces. First of all, where to create them. This is our mentality. this feature is that everything is performed in chaotic way without strategic vision. This is Ukrainian mentality. The analysis allows to analyze locations for remote administrator workplaces according to the list, in which should be priority locations. First are ASCs in those centers where minimum scope of services should be provided, but we will be talking about the content of the services in some other briefing, but now we are talking about developing criteria for development of remote administrator workplaces in each region. I hope that after this method is discussed in the wide expert community, we will commence development of remote administrator workplaces organization in all oblasts. This could be from 120 to 400 administrator workplaces which will work in remote mode. We have some figures already. This would allow us budgeting and strategic planning for 2 or 3 years, and to budget funds for development of this network of remote administrator workplaces for amalgamated communities, for districts, and further for amalgamated communities when the process of amalgamation is over. Are there any more questions? Thank you. Zlenka Natalia, USAID Leadership in Economic Governance Project. Thank you for your detailed work. You provide the maps, and we can see how Ukraine can move forward in development of ASCs. Very often regions have their own vision where they want to locate these ASCs. Sometimes they even think that they should be located in every household. What idea do you have how to communicate, how to persuade that your proposed system of geographic locations is feasible, how to coordinate it with local authorities? And the second question to colleagues from Reform Office and to Mr. Denis as a representative of the ministry, how you plan to resolve the disbalance between ASCs created on the basis of local authorities, local self-governments, and ASCs established at district administrations. Are there any tools to level the system, to neutralize the disbalance? All of us know that the funding systems and the assets provided differ in these two systems. Thank you. As concerns communications, the easier step which we can do, the ministry will place the materials as an official policy at our website, and this is the first easy step. The second step we plan. By the way, today's meeting is also an event contributing to sharing our opinions. I see here representatives of the Ministry of Regional Development and project you lead supporting the reform of decentralization in the area of administrative services provision. This way we can disseminate information and communicate with local authorities, local self-governments, specifically on the subjects of concern, where there is a need to approximate the centers to the population. And the third is regional road shows will be organized to communicate with regional administration so that we can use their best practices of cooperation with ASCs at district administrations. There are several best practice oblasts and development in parallel of ASCs at local self-governments should unite all the centers at least in one region so that regional services become accessible to community members, because according to results of our research, rural citizens, they're 60% and they have good accessibility. But remote village members, they are located rather far from ASCs, so 40% of village residents, they should be addressed. We should make centers closer to them. I support what Mr. Volodymyr said. We understand this problem of district administration ASCs. Many of them have no prospects of development, and there is a draft law at the parliament pending now, and there are some provisions which address this problem. Let's not stop on regional administrations now. We can research how community ASCs provide services. We plan to make a survey and make proposals as well. Lilia Popova, Ministry of Regional Development. Since our ministry has been named, and I would like to add to answer to your question, first to thank the Ministry of Economic Development for our cooperation and so constructive dialogue and activities in provision of administrative services. First, I would like to thank the Office of Reform of Administrative Services, Mr. Volodymyr, Mr. Pavlo. We are very glad that we have specific, constructive materials. First of all, local self-governments are interested in this information for amalgamated communities, and now we have materials to persuade and to prove our proposals. Here we have you lead project representatives tomorrow, a practical discussion will take place in Kalinivka amalgamated community, where they have the question of district administration ASC and amalgamated community NSC. Thank you very much. We will be disseminating your materials and communicate them to local self-governments. Are there any more questions?
Good afternoon, Maxim USA Dobra program. Previous slide, you had the system of assessment of the quality that was introduced. Can you share your experience? And maybe there are new instruments involved in this. So this is our plan of reforms. This is initiative that is now identified. It is not introduced, I should say. This is a goal. It is not developed. We want this to be implemented. And this is our plan till 2020. Now the system of assessment of quality on a centralized level, it is absent. We had a survey that showed that there is a good level of satisfaction, but there is no systemic approach in order to compare the regions, to compare and dynamics in the regions. The system, we do not have it at the moment, and this is one of the initiatives. And we want to bring more experts and projects that work in the sphere of reform of administrative services. So the example of such system that really works, this is Lutsk Administrative Service Center. They have a special electronic tickets, and there are a number of cases, and when people are served, according to the results of each visit, each visitor can put this ticket in one of two boxes with happy smile and with the face that is not satisfied. And each day, the workers of the centers, they look at these tickets and they know who addressed and with whom administrator they worked, and they can resolve these problems, and they do it daily, or they do it next morning. And this is the approach that allows to measure and to provide access to 100% of people, to provide them access to quality assessment system, and to use the system in daily work, not just once as it is done during survey. So we can conduct it once and then we will see who provided what assessment was provided, but to provide the assessment on a continuous basis. So we want to spread this leading practice to all centers. So electronic queue is provided in less than 10% of centers, and the system of electronic processing of documents is also in less than 10% of centers. So technical readiness is low, and this is one of the problems that needs addressing to introduce the system. And it cannot be done in one step, but we know that there is opportunity. And one of the opportunities is the Go for Ukraine project. That is one of the ULEAD project. And in April next year, it is envisaged that they will propose a technical solution, an IT system that will be used by any center as a typical solution. And we base our work on this approach in order to provide accessibility, that the system should not need additional development. So we expect that many projects, and they will be like puzzles that will help us to build the system that is customer-oriented and will provide high quality. Next question, please. Good afternoon, Viktor Timoshchuk. I would like to say that I'm not from ULEAD 2 program, because we have here the representatives of this organization, but I represent the Center of Political Reforms, and we thank you for your work, because I believe that all the stakeholders wait for the resolution of these problems concerning the centers, and I would like to add some proposals concerning further work. So this first map near me, you said about Kalinivka, but here we saw one centers, but we have now de jure 2 centers. And I do not believe that our ministry had correct information how many of these centers present in the region. Volynsk Oblast, I cooperate with another project, and here you named one number, and we know that there is, we do not know proper information about the situation in the regions, even in the context of the issue that was addressed by you. I see that the biggest challenge is not territorial accessibility. If we look at the survey, we have only 14% of people who need to spend more than 20 minutes to get to the centers. So legally, we have this network, but we should improve the work of the centers. But the question number 1 that needs addressing is the regional centers, because I know many situations when we have 2 centers, and they are financed by the projects of support and by authorities. So you should think about it. There are 2 options. One, this is exclusive situation when they have good centers, and the state should make everything possible in order that the amalgamated community didn't create its own center there. And if there is no good center in the regional center, so there should be everything done in order to create the center. So sometimes a city or in Kovil, I faced a situation in Volynsk Oblast. So there were 2 centers available, and what should we do with the situation? Sometimes the region is really big. In this case, there can be a base center for communities, and some remote working places can be established. So this is the big work you did, but we should work more, and we should face even bigger challenges, political challenges, between the quality of services and the front office and back office. They should be properly managed, and there should be, and there are many people who deal with this topic, and I hear a myth that service center in big cities and in small towns, some people believe that they can differ in the number of services provided, but we have about 100 services that are provided by SNAPs, and we should provide these services in all the centers. So thank you. Thank you for this comment. You said it correctly about regional administrations. There is no clear picture, and there is no single decision how to address this issue. And with your help and with the help of the office and the present expert, we'll be able to elaborate the policy. And we should work case by case in each place. So there are several types of situations, and we should address them separately. And about mapping, so due to this instrument, we will provide information about the centers throughout the country. Thank you. Good afternoon. Marat Gulchevsky, USAID. I have a question. At the beginning, you explained about electronic services, that there are some problems with introduction of e-services. But we would like to know your opinion. A lot have been said about geography and coverage, and accessibility is one of the main issues. But do you take into account the provision of some services electronically in order to avoid this creation of physical centers, because sometimes there are bad roads or some other problems? So what about electronic solutions that you've mentioned in your statement? Thank you. Thank you. We believe that we need to integrate approach. So there should be physical coverage and also electronic services. There is a portal of administrative services under the Ministry of Economic Development, and we plan the architecture of this portal. And parallel to this, we know that there is work on the development of typical systems, IT systems for the provision of services. And we want to unite these functionalities, and they should have proper electronic system in order not to duplicate the input of information. So the information should be copied to the registers automatically. So when the visitor wants to get some information or some document, that should be done electronically, and remote administrators can be provided with proper IT means, and for startups, this should be the same. So this is our approach. So we will be thankful if USAID supports us. We know that you invest money in electronic services in order to cooperate and provide the accessibility. So thank you for this discussion. So this was the last question for today. In several minutes, next event will start. We wish success to the project. Till the next time, goodbye.